Mark Nemirow resides in Exeter Township with his wife Jerry and their daughters Audra, a student at Hofstra University, and Molly, a senior at Exeter High School. He's the opinion page editor of the Reading Eagle and editor of the Jewish Federation of Reading's monthly Shalom newspaper. A native of Long Island, New York, he has resided in Berks County since 1989 when he began work at the Eagle.
When I think back on my Jewish story, it occurs to me that I was well prepared all my life for the position I hold now at the Jewish Federation of Reading, which involves working with people throughout the Jewish community across the spectrum of Jewish practice and observance. When I was growing up, my earliest memories were that we belonged to a conservative congregation, and I started Hebrew school at a conservative congregation, but we spent high holidays at a Chabad congregation. It wasn't a congregation that met regularly. It was a congregation that mostly gathered during the high holidays as a place for unaffiliated people to go. But my father developed a strong connection with the rabbi there, a man named Rabbi Berks. Out of loyalty to him, I think, as much as anything, he always spent the high holidays at his shul, helped out any way he could, made sure they had a minyan, things like that. So immediately I had an experience at a conservative synagogue and in a more orthodox world. Later on, we started to go to Hebrew school at the Chabad facility, and I had my bar mitzvah there. Meanwhile, most of my friends went to a Reform synagogue, and I spent a lot of time there as well because my friends were there. I went to bar mitzvahs there, sometimes accompanied my friends to services. Right away I had a lot of experiences with different aspects of Judaism, and I felt comfortable in each of them. Now, I was growing up in Long Island, New York, which was a place where being Jewish was fairly common, not exclusively, of course, but lived in a fairly heavily Jewish community, and became accustomed to that. After my bar mitzvah, like a lot of people, I kind of drifted away from Judaism for a while. When I moved to Reading, I really didn't have much of a connection to the Jewish community initially. But when it came time for me to get married, we decided that we wanted to have a religious ceremony. And Rabbi Weitzman, blessed memory, was the rabbi at Ohab Shalom at the time in the early 1990s. He agreed to perform the ceremony. As a result, we wound up joining the synagogue and have been members there since 1994 when we got married. A few years later, I wound up having new connections to the Jewish community when my father passed away in 1998. I promised my father that I would say Kaddish for him every day. At that time, Kesher Zion had a daily service, and they were kind enough to allow me to attend the services, which I did as often as I could. Rabbi Weintraub, who was the rabbi there at the time, members of the congregation were very, very supportive and friendly, and it worked out very well, and I count many of those people as my friends to this day. So I was already starting to build new connections in this Jewish community beyond my own congregation, beyond my own particular religious practice. In 2005, I was invited to take a job at the Jewish Federation, editing the Shalom. Stan Ramadi, who recently passed away, called me. They needed a new editor. The previous editor was leaving town, and I guess somebody heard that I worked for a newspaper and that I was Jewish, so I seemed like a good candidate for the job. 15 years later, I'm still doing that. It's been an interesting experience being involved in the Jewish community in Reading as opposed to what I grew up with on Long Island. When I was growing up, I didn't really think that much about being Jewish because being Jewish on Long Island really wasn't a big deal. But even before I got involved in the community, I realized that it was different living in Reading. It was sort of exotic to be Jewish. People were asking me questions, all friendly. I haven't experienced any personal animus for being Jewish around here, I'm happy to say. But it was different. I learned a lot from those experiences, and getting involved in Federation really reinforced the idea of how important it is for all of us in the Jewish community to work together, rally together, and do whatever we can to help our small community succeed. We are not a community that can function with people building walls between them in the Jewish community. There's just not enough of us, and it's not a good idea under any circumstances. So in the 15 years I've been working at the Federation, I've been trying very hard to encourage the sort of cooperation that we need. Having had the experience of being in the Reform world, the conservative world, and the Orthodox world, in addition to the secular Jewish world, and all of us need to work together in order to succeed. We need to look beyond our own particular experiences, our own particular preference for observance and worship, and think of ourselves as Jews. Think of ourselves as part of a larger community and work together through the Federation, through our synagogues, through other organizations in the community to do our best to help one another. I see bright future for this community if we are able to continue doing that. And I've seen very positive signs of it in the time that I've lived here. I think we're working much more cooperatively than we did when I first started getting involved in the community, and it's a beautiful thing. I look forward to continuing to do that in the future and to help out in whatever way I can.
The Jewish Federation of Reading hopes you enjoyed this story and getting to know a fellow Jew living in Berks County. Federation is the central organization for issues affecting all Jews in Berks County. It represents us all, working closely in cooperation with local synagogues and community partners. Your gift to Federation supports our Jewish community here in Berks County, in Israel, and around the world. You provide cultural programs through the JCC. You assist Berks County Jews in need through Jewish Family Service. You combat the growing problem of anti-Semitism. You fund Jewish education for the next generation. To continue these services, we ask you to participate in a very special community campaign. During 2020, generous community members will match dollar-for-dollar campaign increases from both new donors and longtime contributors. Every new or additional campaign dollar donated in 2020 becomes two. If you're not yet a contributor, please consider starting. If you're already a contributor, please consider increasing your gift. Your campaign contribution to Federation keeps our story of Jewish life going here in Berks County.